All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakadash, double honor to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect out here spreading this gospel and sincerity and truth throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom. And I'm going to just jump right into this video, man. I'm going to jump right into this article, man, because it's a lot of crazy things going on around the world, man. It's only getting worse. This world is just, America first and foremost, but everything is just waxing worse and worse, to the morality of this place, to the people that, so-called know that they're Israelites, these other camps out here that's teaching against the actual truth. Everything is just waxing worse and worse, And this article that I'm about to go into just further proves that, things are just waxing worse and worse. Get artificial intelligence, robots and chatbots talking about, wiping out all the humans on Earth. Everything is just getting out of control, man. And this is just further proof, of the times that we are in, man. So let me read through this real quick. It says, an Indiana music theory teacher pushed out of his job for refusing to call transgender students their preferred names and pronouns took a hit from a federal judge Friday who upheld a lower court's ruling that the school district did not violate his rights. So they basically just fired a teacher just because he didn't want to call this transgender student by what they wanted him to call them, which is bullshit. And like I said in a different video, is that you got transgender people, but you basically have to warp your reality around the things that they believe. But if you believe in something, say that you are a so-called Christian or something like that, even though Christians, they don't have the truth either and they're going off, but you can't force a transgender person to accept your reality and what you believe. But in this world, you have to accept their reality and what they believe. So if they believe that they are a male, even though they was born a woman, you have to warp your reality around theirs and accept them for whatever they calling themselves, man. You literally have to warp your reality around whatever it is that they believe, but they can't do the same to your beliefs, And this just further lets us know that most of these people out here, if not all of them, they hate the Bible. They can't stand the Bible. And once brothers out there on the streets and things like that start preaching, according to the scriptures, these people, they really can't stand it, man. As much as they say they love the Bible and things like that, they really have a hatred for the Most High and his word, you see. And it's coming a time that people are going to start hating us, and they're going to have a deep hatred towards the men speaking the words of the Most High, to the point that they're going to want to X us out. They're going to want to kill us and hurt us and torture us and do all kind of madness to us, lock us up and things like that, man. So on and so forth, because this world is getting out of control, man. And as time goes on, the more these people are going to have more hatred for the Bible and things like that, man. But it says former Brownsburg High School teacher John Klug sued the school district alleging religious discrimination after he cited his personal religious convictions for refusing to abide by the name and pronoun policy, opting to address transgender students by their last names instead. So, he was, even though he don't agree with the whole transgender thing, which he was right, to not, be forced to abide by their beliefs, but he had his own religious thing that he was upholding. And he, in his own right, he was being respectful towards this group of people by, he wasn't calling them by their preferred names that they wanted to be called, but instead he addressed them still, but he addressed them as their last name, still being respectful, in his own right, just calling them by their last name, which is still their name. But as you continue to read the article, you'll see that they still had a problem with that. And it says, according to Fox News, the school district, after enacting the policy in 2017, initially agreed. So in 2017, they initially agreed to let Klug use last names to address the students instead, according to the Associated Press. So they agreed, that was okay. That was a clever idea, instead of, it lets him uphold his religious beliefs and at the same time still address this group of people respectfully, in a respectful way. But it says they agreed to let him call them by the last names to address them, but it says some students alleged the move to call them by their last names created an uncomfortable classroom experience and singled out students who identified as transgender and reported their concerns. So these group of people, man, this trans group of people, they were still unsatisfied and angry. First and foremost, probably because this man, has some type of belief in the Bible, and he, upheld certain what word am I looking for? He upheld certain beliefs, for lack of a better term. He upheld certain beliefs according to the Bible, man. And because he believed in the Bible, he believed in the scriptures and things like that to a certain degree. This trans group of people was trying to make it hard on him, even though that he was calling out their last names to identify them. They still had a problem with it because he wasn't calling them by what they wanted him to address them as, So they said that they felt singled out, they felt targeted, all emotional and bitchy because he didn't identify them as what they wanted to be called, and they reported him. And it says Klug said he later resigned in 2018 after the school reevaluated the last name policy and told him he would be fired if he did not comply with the preferred name and pronoun rule on the books. So they backtracked on what they said. First they agreed with it and said, okay, that's cool. And then later they said they reevaluated the last name policy and told him that he's going to get fired if he don't comply and call them whatever pronoun or name that they wanted to be called. You see? So if it's a biological female and they wanted to be called Brandon, or wanted to be called a male, he wasn't with that. Or if it was a biological male that wanted to be called Tiffany, he wasn't with that. You see? But they said that he would be fired if he didn't call them, what they wanted to be called, which is bullshit, man. You think I'm finna call a big buff ass, grown ass man with a beard on his face, I'm finna call him Tiffany? You got your damn mind. So I agree with this man on that, man. They want to push that everybody hold hands and everybody do what makes them happy, and they want to push that shit so much to the point where it's causing so much confusion, and there's so many lies and deception that's going on because of this. A lot of damage. But it says he sued with the help of conservative legal group Alliance Defending Freedom a year later, alleging workplace discrimination while requesting his job back and unspecified money damages reported. And it says the Chicago-based 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Friday that Klug's religious convictions on the issue disrupted classroom operations, upholding an Indiana federal judge's previous ruling that the refusal created an undue hardship on the district. Brownsburg has demonstrated as a matter of law that the requested accommodation worked as an undue burden on the school's educational mission by harming transgender students and negatively impacting the learning environment for transgender students. For other students, includes classes and the school generally, and for faculty, the court's opinion read. So basically, they agreed with the school, wanting to fire him, man, because he didn't want to, go by what these transgender students wanted to identify as, even though that's not what they are, So everything is just waxing worse and worse, man, and it's all by design. All of this confusion, and chaos and disorder. You know what I'm saying? It's all by design. At the very end of this, people not even gonna know up from down, because it's getting so bad, man, to the point like it's every generation that's coming after the next is like 5 times worse than the one before it, man. It's out of control, and this is because who's ruling? Esau Edom, the so-called white man. He's allowing these things to take place, man. He wants to bring as many people down with him as possible to his level, because he's the scriptures call him, he's the base. He's the base of all men. He's the bottom of the men that are on this earth, man. He's the base of all men. He's the lowest that it gets. He's very immoral, and he wants to bring everyone else down to his level, because that's ultimately his nature, to be that low, man. And he's pushing this vibration on everyone else, And now they even got you Jakes, you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans at the forefront of all this, of his wicked agenda, man. The whole trans group, LGBT community, they got our people as the face of it, Even though this is Esau's nature to be this way, they have incorporated our people into their groups, because our people, as Israelites, we are the most influential nation of people on this planet. The scriptures call us the salt of the earth. So we have the most flavor and spice in everything that we do. So we are the most influential. We can easily influence any other nation. Esau, he has to use media. He has to use different tactics and things like that. Our people, we don't have to do this in our spirit to be influential. Esau has to use tactics and things like that to trick people into doing certain things, or, brainwashing people and things like that, which is why a lot of people want to be like Esau because he used tactics and things like that. But our people, we don't need that, man. Our people, it's in our spirit to be influential, man. People see us and they automatically want to be like us, man. This is why everybody copy us, man. You know, we don't have to use tactics and brainwashing and we don't have to use none of those schemes, man, to get people to want to be like us and things like that. People automatically want to be like us, man, because it's in our spirit. We are the salt of the earth. We are the most influential people on the planet, and Esau knows this, man. So he uses us, to forward his agenda, to get all these other nations involved in his bullshit, and our people are the face of it. They make us the face of their agenda, and use our influence to get all these other people to get involved in his bullshit. Which is why a lot of you Israelites are going to be destroyed, man, because the scriptures talk about being hand in hand with these people is going to get you killed, man. Being hand in hand with Esau and these other heathens is going to get you X'd out by the Most High, man. It's going to be a very harsh judgment coming for you for putting these people before Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah, man. And your own people. But let me go into the scripture real quick. But this is Proverbs 29:2, and it says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn." And that's right, man, because Esau, he's in authority right now. This is why all this wickedness is reaching into the heavens, man. It's out of control. You got whole trans group, got men with full fucking beards on their face, but with painted nails and lipstick and eyeshadow and shit on, man. Just wicked, man. Just crazy, just very out of order, man. You see something like that, you're supposed to kill it on sight. In the ancient world, if something like that was to walk around in Israel, when our people was there in that land, it would have to be killed on sight. If LeBron was to wear a fucking dress and purse walking through Israel in the ancient world, LeBron would be killed on sight wearing women's clothing, man. And that's how it's supposed to be. People like that are supposed to be made an example of. We're supposed to take somebody like that, and make a big scene and just slaughter their ass in front of everybody as an example of what not to do, because if you do this could happen to you. It's supposed to be made an example to others, especially the youth, of not to do nothing like that, because this is the same judgment you would get for following in these footsteps, man. That's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to make an example out of people like this, man, with a harsh judgment. So, but because the wicked are in rulership, these things get a pass, man. These things flourish over here, which is why everything is waxing worse and worse, man, because the youth see this and think that this shit is okay or normal, and they follow in the same footsteps, which makes it worse, But when our people, the Israelites, once we get put in our rightful position, which is above all nations, as the scriptures say, and we get in authority, everybody is going to rejoice, man, because, hey, everybody is going to know that our laws, statutes, commandments is the way that the earth should be governed. Everybody is going to, you ain't going to have women out here sleeping with all different types of men. You ain't going to have trans people, out here. It's just crazy, man. I don't even want to speak on it like that, but, it's going to be a totally different world when our people are in authority. You know, and every other nation is going to benefit from our rulership. But when Esau is in rulership, man, you get things like this, man. You get fucking basically just women with dicks, man, and balls and shit. You know, just all different types of abomination, man. That's what you get with Esau being in rulership. You know, and that's not even half of 1% of the wicked shit that this man got off his sleeve, man, that he's been doing and have done. You see? And Esau's so wicked that his own people are mourning. You got other Edomites mourning from their rulership, man. You know, even them being in rulership don't even benefit their own people, man. Even their own people are mourning, you know. So when our people get in rulership, Esau, he's gonna get put in fucking chains, you know, which is his rightful position because he's the base of all men, which means his rightful position is to be in chains, is to be at the bottom, you know, because he's the wicked. He's not supposed to be running amok, you know, without any type of supervision. He's supposed to be put in chains, and just like a bitch, he's supposed to be told what to do, you know. But hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, everything's waxing worse and worse, man. And because this man is in rulership, this is why the world, you know, is the way that it is. You see? This is why it's the way that it is. But it's coming a time that our people is gonna get put into rulership, man. This world is gonna be totally different. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna have fucking judges like this agreeing with bullshit like this, because our people are gonna be the judges, man. You know? And we see something like that, hey, we're gonna kill it on sight, or we're gonna have a big scene, or you know, where it gets killed in front of a lot of people as an example, you know. But I'm gonna go ahead and give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Karkadash, Double Honesty, Apostles, and Elders at Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. You know, Shalom.